Good evening, everybody, and how are we all doing today? This is the Sunday night live off screen, live from the Podding Shed. How are we all doing on this lovely Sunday evening? Now, it's probably not escaped everyone's notice that it is Halloween tomorrow, and that means that I want to hear your gardening horror stories. Not just me, we've got Frank down here as well, who's well, he's so excited, he's steaming hot today, but bit of fun we're having. How are we all? How are we all doing? First things first. Wow, crikey, you guys were in here early today, weren't you? This is obviously something that's been excited, or is it the change of the clocks? Ballycillian is out there saying, "Good evening, Richard and Veg Grower Army. Good evening to you." Idaho Garn Girl saying, "Hello, Richard and Ballycillian. Good evening to you." Alison O'Brien, evening all a bit earlier tonight. It's a bit confusing, this time change, isn't it? Oracle Arts Allotment is out there. Hi, Army and Stuart Jackson. Good evening to you. David Williams, evening all. Good evening to you. Who else have we got? Lots and lots of comments going in. Adrian is out there. Good evening to you. Lovely to see you. Anna Jones is out there. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. Alison is saying, I can't remember if I had any gardening horror stories. Hopefully, as we go on through this discussion, it'll jog your memory and you might come up with some. Andrew Norris is out there. Well, the whole gang is here already. Greetings, everyone. Good evening to you. Turbo Stream is out there. Good evening, Veg Podcasters. Good evening to you. Hargrave Gas is out there. Evening, everyone. At least with the clocks changing, we don't miss out on gardening time to join the podcast. Isn't it dark already? It is dark already. It's rather weird, isn't it? I woke up this morning, went down to the allotment, and I thought to myself, I'm on the allotment and it's only 8 o'clock. It feels like it's 9. Got a couple of hours on the allotment before breakfast, so very, very happy with that. One good thing about the clocks change. My dad has joined. Good evening to you. Hope you're well and had a lovely birthday the other day. Who else have we got? Kate in the Facebook group is out there saying, good evening, Veg Army. Kate, anybody who might be watching in the Facebook group, unfortunately, the way Facebook works sometimes, you have to leave your name at the end just so I know who you are. Rebecca is out there. Good evening to you. Hope you are late. Ian Beddoes has joined and he's saying, I'm an hour late. Or perhaps you're an hour early. Depends on which way. Stuart Jackson is out there. Good evening, all. Sorry I'm late. We'll let you off. It is a bit confusing. Chili Kate is out there. Evening, all. Good evening to you. And Anna Costalas, hope I'm pronouncing, greetings from Montreal. Lovely to see you. David Williams has come up with sheds falling apart. Undecided whether to try and fix it or build a new shed or shell out a fortune. Oh, that's a tough one. Tough one. Is that a bit of a horror story going on there? Tell us what's going on. Let's see. Richard Golden has joined. Hello, mate. How are you? Digwell's out there. Hi, all. In and out of this live as I'm editing like. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm editing like crazy. Big video coming out Tuesday, so get over to Digwell Greenfingers to see that video. Now the phone line is if I can find it, the phone line is open. If you want to call in, the number is 07307 135 174, or you can zap in as well. My mouse is probably going to need a new battery by the looks of it, but you can zap in as well and appear on screen with the link that is going up in the comments. Of course, if you're in the Facebook group, you may not see it. So gardening horror stories. Let's get into it. We've done all the welcoming in, which is always very, very welcome. So what I want to find out is what gardening horror story has happened to you that has had a negative effect. So for one example, something that happened to me, and we can have a bit of fun with this, by the way. But one thing that when I was thinking about this subject that happened to me is I used to keep all my seed potatoes in a tray in my old shed come greenhouse just before I was planting them, just so they were up there, out the way, starting to chit. Um, and they were absolutely fine in it. I've done it for a few years, never a problem. Then one particular day, I opened the shed door, and there were all my seed potatoes sat on the ground, falling off the shelves. All the labels were all over the place. It was really, really quite annoying. Now, this may not sound like much of a horror story, but what became the problem was when I planted him, I didn't exactly know which potato is what. So, for all I knew, I could have been planting something like a Jersey Royal in with Maris Papers or something. So, I didn't really know what was what. Now, that's just one story that I have come up with. Has anybody got any of their own? Turbo Stream, I've not left the house in over 10 days. Came down with a bad dose of COVID. Hopefully, okay now. Hope you feel better soon, buddy. COVID is not nice. I've had it once, and that was enough. Um, Everyone, Brian's Garden and Polytunnel has joined. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. Turbo Stream, hopefully your allotment is okay and no horror stories. Well, we'll find out. We'll find out. David Williams, worst thing on my plot was caused by a neighbour. Please do tell us more. Phone line is open if you want to call in or zap in on the link in the comments. Ian Bennett says, put the cove. Let me get my words out. Put the cover back on the veggie pod and thinned out the leaves on the tomatoes, plus taken seed pods off the sweet peas, hoping to get a free flower display next year. Fantastic. That's what Ian's been up to. Fantastic. Fantastic. I removed my tomatoes yesterday, funnily enough. I've decided I've had enough for the tomatoes for this year. We had lots of green tomatoes, quite a few still red tomatoes, but the green tomatoes are now trying to ripen. But I'm just pleased that we've kind of come to the end of the season. No more tomatoes until next year. Turbo Stream says, my second lot of COVID turned into long COVID last year, so fingers crossed this time. Not pleasant. Not pleasant at all. David Williams says, friendly Robin killed by a daft plot holder who baited mousetrap with cat food. You guessed it. Why do people feel the need to use cat food to trap mice when it's going to, yeah, not fair on the Robin, the poor thing. I do love it. We used to have Robins in our garden. Haven't seen him for a couple of years. I hope he's okay. But yeah, I've got to admit, I do hate it when plot holders feel the need. We had a ban with foxes. We used to have foxes on our allotment, and some bloke used to come down and shoot them, which I don't agree with in some ways. I don't agree with it at all. I think foxes are a normal part of our habitat, and they control their own numbers, and we've destroyed more and more of their living places as man is doing what it does. But these poor foxes, we've actually banned now from anybody using anything like that on our allotment, which I think is great. Exactly what I wanted to hear. I don't call myself a vegan or anything like that, but I do believe in looking after animals because, well, they've got as much right to this place as we do. Speaking of animals, actually, funny enough, when I was digging up my main crop potatoes today, and I discovered that as I'm digging up a lot of my main crop potatoes, that something has been chewing on the potatoes underground. It's definitely a rodent because I can see tooth marks, possibly a rat or something that's burrowed underground to get to my potatoes. So Idaho says, a couple of years ago, I grew different vegetables in fabric pots. They all died, potatoes and peppers. Top of the soil was not disturbed. At the end of the seasons, pulled out the plants, giant cavity underneath the plants. Gopher had burrowed up from underneath the fabric pot and ate everything from underneath. That's my horror story. That's that's the sort of story I'm after, because it's a disaster, isn't it? When you cannot explain what's going on and your plants are dying, you're trying everything to stop it from happening, and then all of a sudden, an animal or something kills it off, and it burrows in from underneath, as in that gopher. Is a gopher a bit like a mole? I've never really looked into what a gopher is, to be honest. So yeah, not a nice story at all. Ian McGorgan has joined. Good evening to you. Andrew Norris says, my only disaster was planting 5 rows of parsnips, 3 different packets of seeds, and only 3 came up. Not enough even for soup. But I've mentioned this before. Yeah, that is a bit of a disaster, isn't it? And a horror story, trying to spend all that time growing those parsnips for them to not grow. What was happening with the ground? Having a bit of fun here. What was happening in the ground to kill off all the parsnips that would have germinated? Was there something going on? Is the ground being an ancient burial site for Indians or something that we don't know of? And that made it impossible for your parsnips to germinate. Joe Fleming is joined in the Facebook group. Lovely to see you. Hope you are well. Rebecca, I'll never forget the beginning of the year when I'd snuck my Wilko shelves into the dining room. I had all my chilies and aubergines lined up nicely. When I came down one morning, they collapsed. And she goes on to say, all over a beige carpet. Can you imagine? I can imagine. Yes, I can imagine. This is part of the reason why my wife has banned me from having plants inside the house, because these shelves do have a tendency to fall over and collapse and play around like that, which is very, very annoying and very, very upsetting, of course. But my wife's main complaint was the fact that it ruined our carpet, or could ruin our carpet, especially if you've got a dog like we do, who more than likely try and dig that mud into the carpet as well. Idaho says, no, I pot the fabric pots in large plastic trays. Yeah, I know. Anything to try and stop those gophers in a friendly way, I think, is the way to do it. Was that the cat, Rebecca? David is asking. Buddy Sin says, my biggest disaster was using free horse manure delivered to the allotments. I didn't know the horses and droppings still contained a weed killer the farmer had used. Yes, any more porpholates or something, the weed killer is known as. I'm sure somebody's going to correct me on that. I can never pronounce that word quite right. But yeah, there is a weed killer used in horse fields, which apparently doesn't harm the horses at all and goes through their system, but still lives in that horse manure. It's one of the reasons I believe a lot of gardeners will test their horse manure before using it by using or growing some broad beans or something in it just to see if they germinate. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a broad leaf. So plants with a big leaf, it stops them from germinating. Digwell says, my horror story, my arm getting phytophotodermatitis. And he's actually phonetically spelled it for me. Thank you. When lifting parsnips, big, insanely itching blisters that came back for 2 years when it was sunny. Long sleeves now. Funny you say that. I don't know what happened today. Probably, let me see if I can get into the light a bit better. There. I think you can just about see it. I'm just looking on the screen myself. Just about see it. I've got bit by something today, and I was sat there at the kitchen table scratching, and I noticed came up in a bit of a bump. Probably nowhere near as serious as what you got, of course, but a bit of annoying. I did go down the allotment this morning, and I was doing a bit of weeding, so perhaps it came from that. So I'm not sure if this is Joe or Kate. My horror story: gardening at home, feeling rather relaxed in the zone, and I was set upon something wet and clinging to my leg. I was wearing shorts. I screamed loud enough to wake the dead and put the woman in psycho to shame. Not sure who was scared, me or the poor innocent frog that jumped on my leg to say hi. Husband laughed hysterically, did not help. Funny enough, that seems like a common story that does come out. There's these little insects or creatures that are wet and slimy or feel wet and slimy appearing on your leg. Uh, I quite often get it during the night when I'm in bed, and all of a sudden this wet thing suddenly pushes against me. It's Roxy's nose, who's sort of cuddling up as she does during the night, and I just feel this wet thing. Like, what is that? Ginny has joined. Hello, so sorry I'm late. Been driving and held up. Hope you are all well. My garden nightmare disaster was I got burnt by a euphorbia plant. Needed medical treatment. Luckily, no veg disaster to date. That does sound rather nasty, having euphorbia burns. I know the sapnos can be really, really nasty. There's quite a few plants out there that have a really nasty sap if you're not careful with it. I think sometimes they should come with health warnings, but then again, it's gardening. You can't wrap us all up in cotton wool. As I say, I suspect that could be something like that. I don't know what it is. It's now I've mentioned it, it's got itchy again. Ian McGorgan, I once grew a pumpkin seed from a carved pumpkin and could not understand why it was growing long and green and not round and orange, but it reverted to a marrow. Quite common with cucurbits, isn't it? They revert back to what they were, or what the original plant was, or the cross contamination as well, cross pollination. Sorry, where a pumpkin can become a marrow or a courgette. Not uncommon at all, and that's part of the reason why there were so many issues going on in the past. Andrew says, I think it was a hot sun forming a crust on top of the seeds. He mentioned about his parsnips not growing earlier. A hot sun forming a crust on top of a seed so the seeds could not penetrate, but I have a solution for next year. I think we've come up with quite a few solutions for parsnips over the time, but we keep trying it. Leaf mold for me, slightly off topic, but what I found I like to do with parsnips is put the drill in, sow the parsnip seeds, and then put some leaf mold, well-rotted leaves, in on top just to cover the seeds, and that seems to work. So Margaret Peacock has got a gardening horror story for us. She starts part one. This is not my horror story, but my father-in-law's. Money was very tight way back when. Harry had bought these seed potatoes and left them to chit in his shed. His sister-in-law came to visit while Harry and Joyce went out to get some food shopping. Auntie was to peel the potatoes. They came back to find she had peeled Harry's seed potatoes for dinner. She then complained about how small and fiddly they were to peel. We laughed. Harry, not so much. I can see that happening, can't you? I can see that happening. If somebody is coming around and helping for dinner and they're going to into your shed to look for potatoes and peeling them, I can definitely see that happening. I just felt something touch the back of my the back of my back here, and I was like, "What the hell is that?" Talking of horror stories, it's just a lead from my earphones. Pocket gopher. It's about the same size as a mole, no long nose, and has a short tail. Kind of brindle grey colour, coarse, rough, large orange in sizes. So it's similar to a mole, just a different colour from what I can understand. I wonder if they are the same family. I've never really looked into a gopher. I've just heard a lot about them. If that was aminopyrrolide, that's what I meant. Aminopyrrolide. Then the farmer was breaking the law by allowing it to leave the farm. This is talking about the horse manure that had a weed killer in it. This could have been a few years ago. Let's not forget. It may not have been recent. And he's helped me out there. Aminopyrrolide. I know there's always somebody out there to try and help me with some pronunciation at times. Hargrave Gas says, I suppose my horror story would involve a mini polytunnel a few years ago that I had lovingly filled with tomatoes. Then wind came, hadn't weighed it down enough, no more polytunnel, no more tomatoes. I know how you feel there. Similar thing happened to me a few years ago on my old allotment, twice in two different years, funny enough. This, admittedly, it was those cheap polytunnels, the ones that you get from the likes of Wilkinson's or places like that, they're about £40. Not much money, and I paid for it because they were a waste of time. That's why whenever I'm asked a question, I always recommend getting or spending a bit of money, get a decent polytunnel or greenhouse. Those cheap ones, I don't feel are really worth it, in my opinion. I'm sure there's going to be people that come out and say, actually, mine has lasted quite well. I'm basing it completely on my opinion. Turbo Stream, my strawberries have been a total disaster on my allotment. 3 years and only about 3 strawberries. They are coming out this winter. Yes, I've had a strawberry appear on my strawberry plant at the moment. It's just starting to turn red, and I'm quite surprised. But the wind this autumn has been quite warm. We were talking about this yesterday, how warm it was, funny enough. Ballyson, many years ago in Digwell around, oh yeah, I'd said it might have been a while ago. Yeah. Stuart Jackson, my biggest gardening disaster was when I was about 8 or 9. My dad asked me to move some mulch with a fork. I put the fork through my foot, put me off of gardening for years. P.S. The fork missed my bones, so I just had a hole in the right foot. Oh, ow. Yeah, it's like I have this a couple of times lately, and I've had to clear these up. I use old pallets, or I did use old pallets and bits of pallet wood to weigh down my weed suppressing membrane, and a few of those still had nails in it coming up that I hadn't realised. And a couple of times I've stood on those. Luckily, not heavy, but it's only a matter of time before the worst happens. So, yeah, putting a fork through your foot. Oh, that's made me cringe. Ian says he got burnt by pruning a fig tree and big wells on my arms. I wonder if no, I haven't touched my fig tree today. Digwell says I lifted all my euphorbia out when I found out how poisonous they are. I think in retrospect, everything's poisonous in some way. There's a just have a swig of that. There's actually a garden that I do want to visit in the UK, which is I can't remember where it is, but it's got a lot of the poisonous plants that known to man. I really want to go to that garden. I think it's in Essex, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong, but I think it's in Essex, and it's definitely somewhere that I want to go and have a nose around and just see all these poisonous, and it's built up as the most poisonous garden in the world. Excuse me. Jenny says, I keep removing the euphorbia now. Buggers spread everywhere. Don't blame you for removing them, nasty buggers. That's one reason I stick with edibles. Parsnip, sow the seed in paper pots to win. Yeah, that was one of the options we had. Idaho says I had the same thing with an inexpensive plastic greenhouse. Now I'm saving for a decent one. Indeed, yeah. 1 year, my eye swelled up like golf balls. I attribute this to the sapping dandelions and touching my face afterwards. I steer clear of them these days. Yes. So I was having this discussion recently with somebody about this very thing. Wearing, I don't know if anybody wears gloves when they're gardening. I try to, but I don't always. And there's one time actually where it kind of dried at home on my allotment with all the couch grass. I was weeding out my asparagus bed, and I felt something sharp in my skin, and what it was dried grass. And dried grass becomes that sort of hollow tube. It got into my arm, if I remember correctly. It got into there, and I sort of stopped what I was doing, took my gloves off, and pulled it out. And I kid you not, it was about that deep it went in. It was absolutely horrifying. My disaster this summer was falling backwards over a wheelbarrow and bruising my ribs. Oh, that sounds very, very painful. Ow, very painful. Not pleasant at all. At all. Jill Brown says, will bean seeds in the ground or in pots first? So I'm doing mine in the ground first. Like my field beans and my broad beans. So I've put them in the ground. But there's no reason why you can't put them in pots first and get them started, or even, as Stuart says, paper pots, to also then just put the paper straight in the ground and ready to go. I used to do mine in root trainers as well. They worked quite well. I haven't got any to hand, but I'm just sticking with straight in the ground just because it's quick and easy. And again, I'm quite mild where I am. I cannot quite remember where you live, Jill, but I think you're quite mild as well. So you'll get away with it in the ground, no problem. Mate, raw beans are hardy, so it's fine. The only problem with them in being in the ground might be if you get mice. Ian Mendoza has got to go. Yesterday, my daughter got hit in the face with a hockey. She was playing hockey. Oh, that does sound painful. I hope she's okay, Ian, and all the best to her. Fig, lime, carrot, parsnip, parsley, and many other umbellifiers, and umbellifiers, I'm having trouble with my words tonight, contain the irritant. Yeah, that does, yeah. Particularly in the leaves. Groundhog ate all my bok choy this summer. How annoying. How absolutely annoying. I guess, again, I don't know what groundhogs are. I'm guessing they're similar to rabbits, which would explain a lot. Brian's Garden Polytunnel says, this whole year has been a nightmare for me. Using compost made from wood pulp and with added green waste. I have been noticing on this very subject, actually, I've been noticing that a lot of my brought in compost, we are getting grass starting to grow in them, and it's becoming a little bit annoying. I don't know if it's because I'm using peat-free compost. Well, it is because I'm using peat-free compost. It's green waste, but definitely grass is seeming to grow in the compost that I'm buying in. Alnwick Gardens, that's it. Alnwick Gardens Castle, poisonous plants, and apparently it's in Northumbria. That's the one I was thinking of. Yes, that's definitely the one I was thinking of. That's on my list of places I'm going to go next year, because you know what, I love going out to gardens. I really want to go and see these places. Yeah. Jenny says, foot injury just reminded me 15 years ago in the garden, an old rusty screw went through my shoe and foot. A&E doctor pulled it out of my foot and shoe with pliers. Oh, I'm cringing at the thought of that. I'll be honest with you. The pain of that. Going into somebody's foot or anything and having to be pulled out with pliers. Oh, yeah. That. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Oh, Stuart says you should be okay. Oh, Jill says Cornwall. I thought it was down that way. Yes. Yeah. In the ground. In the ground is what I would say. No problem with that. You should be okay in Cornwall to sow in the ground. Yeah. You'll be fine. Mine are in the ground. I did those as the supporters club that you're talking about. Last week? Last Sunday, yes. Last Sunday they were in the ground. So haven't seen any signs of life from them just yet. But I am seeing my garlic is starting to spring into life. My boss went into the polytunnel to water the bedding plants, and as he pulled the hose pipe, a snake came with it. I had to get it out as he would not go near it. You know, that's one of the things that has always worried me from time to time about being in the garden. I'm not scared of snakes, but I'm not a great fan of them. One day we're going to find a adder or something in our allotment. just will happen, especially on the black membrane, just basking in the sun. We quite often get common lizards down on our allotment. I quite see quite a few of those. I tell you what, I'm gonna quickly pause this for a second. We'll come back to the conversation. But each week, as you know, on this live stream, we're trying to sow some seeds just to try and build things up. Now, in the past, we've sown spinach. Last week, we sown aubergines. The aubergines at the moment are not really doing anything, but I reckon by next week we will start to see them come into life. Last week, no, sorry, the spinach we've actually now started to prick out and get going. But this week, I'm sowing these seeds, which are a cabbage, and the variety these cabbages is the Durham Early. And this is just so I can use these up. These should hopefully give us some cabbages for spring, some more cabbages. We're certainly not short on spring cabbages this year, to say the least. But these are just for the sow along on the live show. I know a few of you were interested in this, and this is what we're doing this week. So all I'm doing, let me get rid of that for you. Sorry, bring the overhead cam. I'm going to have a tidy up in here one day. Let me bring us in a bit more to show you what's going on. So I've scattered one pack of the seeds. I'm going to scatter the rest over. I'm doing these quite thickly, admittedly, just because, well, I can use them, get them used up. I'm pushing them down slightly just to make sure they can get contact with the ground. And then the final thing I'm going to do is cover them over with a bit of sieved compost, just to make sure they are all fully covered. There we go. There we go. They could do with a bit more looking at that. Let's do it from a high above. There we go. So that's the cabbage now sown. We will leave these again in the greenhouse until germination. Then we'll prick them out and get them outside, as we are doing this grow along with seeds each week. Nice and easy. Next week, I'm going to be sowing some peas because I've got loads of peas that I need to use up, and I've been going through quite a few of them lately. Right, Turbo Stream. My old garden, a builder was building me a wall. My garage door wouldn't lend shut as he built it too close. He had to knock it down and rebuild it the next day. That's funny, but at the same time, I feel sorry for the guy doing the work, because that is a real problem. We've all done it, haven't we? When we've done a load of work, realised we've done something wrong and had to take it apart. The green waste contains a lot of weeds. It does. I'm finding. Jenny does say a few naughty words were said when that nail was pulled out. Yeah. Rebecca says, bet we've all had a few falls in our time. I fell in a pond before. Yeah. I can't think if I've ever intentionally fallen in the pond. I've never actually had a pond while gardening, but I've never intentionally. But yeah, that definitely has happened, doesn't it? Definitely has happened. Nicola is asking where in Cornwall is Jill. Nicola Cornish Heaven, that is. As we know, she's got a farm down in Cornwall. Stream, I need to buy some compost. All this talk of bad compost puts me right off. I don't know which brand to buy. It's a real tough one, actually, because I'm trying to experiment with different brands, but it's so difficult because the quality does really change between the batches of compost as well. It's really quite tough to recommend a decent peat-free compost brand. I mean, decent is relative. I find that in terms of growth, some are better than the others, but it's the weeds that are causing issues at the moment. I think this is Kate. I was weeding at the allotment and sat on what I thought was just grass behind me. Turns out nettles can indeed sting through leggings. Yeah, yeah. Not that I ever wear leggings, of course, but yeah, stinging nettles can be really vicious if they want. Not even if they want to be. I remember as a child, I was out cycling my bike one day, and I stopped, and somehow I just literally fell straight off my bike into a little patch of nettles, and I was antihistamine on. Well, it took a lot of antihistamine because I'd swollen up really, really badly. Um, David Williams says, I call that cabbage the Pink Panther. Durham. Is that right? That's right, yeah. Jenny says, I highly recommend Natural Grower. It's made up on a farm up the road from me, peat-free, vegan, and organic. It's amazing stuff. Will not grow my precious tomatoes in anything else. I'm still in conversation with a couple of compost companies actually to try out. But yeah, it's a tough one to try and find. I mean, Natural Grower. I'm trying to think. I've got some stuff from Natural Grower. They're pretty good equipment actually. Do Turbo Stream says, do they sell it in garden centres? I'm sure I've seen it in garden centres, but you definitely saw it, or definitely sells it online. Richard Garden, a gardener calls a spade until he falls over it. Yeah. Falling over it, or the comedy thing with a rake, isn't it? Where you stand on it and it comes up and hits you straight in the head. That is always a problem. Actually, that brings me quite nicely into another horror story that happened. A slight horror story. Anyway, I was on my allotment, and this was back in 2020 during that first lockdown. That time that we try and forget these days. But I was working on my allotment, and our pathways around it aren't exactly the most level list ground. They can be a little bit uneven. And this particular day, I was walking along, carrying something, if I remember correctly. And as I walked along the uneven ground, my foot twisted and I fell down like a sack of potatoes. I was in quite a bit of pain as well. And one of my neighbours saw it. He came running over to help, as we instinctively did. Then realised as he got closer, because obviously we had that restriction where you're not allowed to get closer than 2 metres. You couldn't get any closer after all that. One of those, I told this story at the time on the podcast, and it really made me think that at that time, what were we going to do if anybody was ill or something like that happened? How would you get close? Or if somebody fell over, I mean, an old lady fell over on the high street the other day with me, and I rushed over and helped her up, as you would do. What would happen back then? I mean, it's ancient history now, so it would probably never happen. Adrian says, my father fell in one of our ponds with an open chest wound following heart surgery. Oh, I hope he was okay after that. Brian's, you either pay top dollar for compost or blend your own. I'm trying to produce as much compost as possible. And I can never produce enough to fulfill all my needs. I have to buy it in. Jenny says, this is talking about the Natural Grower compost. Yes, but so worth it. They use their maize to make it, always consistent and brilliant. They also sell soil conditioner and feed, which is also amazing. They made a huge difference to my squash. There is a company, I'm struggling to remember. Plant Grow is a company I'm thinking of. Plant Grow. They also make it from maize. They're becoming quite a well-known company for compost. I see them at a lot of the shows. It's a family-run company who also their family name is Suggett, just like mine, except it's spelt slightly different. Interesting. Any peat-free green waste compost you buy will be good one batch, crap the next. It all depends in what goes in each batch, sadly. This is true. This is what I'm discovering. I've had some good seeds and I've had some bad seeds, and it does depend on the batch loads. A horror story is when someone needs a loo and there is no loo. I'm sure a few will tell you it happened. Yes, Oracle, that is a very. I'm just checking the phone is on. Yeah, the phone line is on. Uh, that is a very good point, actually. We've all been down on the allotment and we've needed a toilet. And not many allotments actually have toilets. And if they do, it's very rare. It's one of the things I've said. If I design my own allotment site, that would be top of the list. So what I've done on my allotment is I've got an old camping toilet down there that I now use for emergencies. Um, just in case, because there's nothing worse than needing the toilet on an allotment and having nowhere to go. Ian says, I was cleaning the greenhouse and a rat run over my hand. Lucky not to be bitten. Yeah. Rats are probably more scared of you than anything, to be honest. Bless them. Bless them. Da, 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 da. Adrian says he had an MRSA. It never healed, but within months died of cardiac arrest. Low. I don't think related. Poor guy. Poor guy. I think that's actually quite sad, isn't it? Um, heart surgery in a pond. Not a good mixture. Not a good mixture at all. Digwell, company in Somerset uses maize and ryegrass too, the byproduct digestate of making gas for power generation. I love this. I love these companies that are using these maize and rye to produce gas for power generation, and then the byproduct to go on become compost material as well. It seems to be very much the in thing at the moment. Of course, we're trying to move away from fossil fuels, and I don't know if using maize and rye is better for the environment because it's not a fossil fuel or not. But at the end of the day, we all need electricity to this day in age. David, off topic, but going to try one chili of the 5 I've chosen to start off on November the 1st this year. Had good results with Apache last season. Apache is a very good one. I'm sending some chili seeds out for the supporters club. I can't remember if you're a member. In November. Well, they're going in the post today, funnily enough. But that includes a chili seed called Roxy, which we're trying last year. Oracle says, it's okay, Richard. We understand you drop them at the back of the shed. What do I drop at the back of a shed? What remind me what I said? Oh, yes. I know what you're talking about. Yes. In the last year or so, I'm tripping and falling over brandles, etc. It feels like I fall in slow motion. You've been through a lot in the last year, though, Adrian. Let's not forget that you've been through a lot in the last year. Jenny says the maize cobs also fields is also cow feed, so zero waste. Perfect, absolutely, yeah. Excellent. So Kate says, Arnhem gets deliveries of biofuel digestate. I used some today. First time trying it, so I'll see how I get on. But my God, it stinks of ammonia from Kate. If it stinks of ammonia, you need to let that ventilate. Ammonia can actually be quite dangerous for you. Well, it depletes oxygen, is what I think, in the way I understand it. But it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon at all. You guys do get a lot of stuff delivered to your allotments. We get horse manure, but we got to be in the crowd to be able to use it. I wish we had leaves and other things that were dropped off too. Now, I'm trying to think more of any horror stories that have happened to me while on my allotment or while in my garden. And I've had disasters. I think I don't see them as disasters. I'll be honest with you. I don't see failures or disasters as being a negative thing. I see them more, for me, as being a learning curve. So if something fails or something doesn't grow, we learn more from that because we're able to go and see what went wrong, what happened, and why. If everything just works, we don't really learn anything. So I always find the term disaster or failure a little bit untrue. Or not a negative thing, I guess, is what I'm looking for. it's a positive thing because it gives us the chance to learn. So I'm trying to think of. I know I'm being incredibly lucky because most of my stuff does grow. The only real disasters I have is when I try different things. So okra is a good example. I've tried growing okra several times and I never seem to be able to grow it. Next year might be different. We've got some okra seeds somewhere. We're going to try it next year um, and see what happens. Da, 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 da. There we go, just dealing with something there. Oracle says Mallard wondered why the plants grow better there. Oh yes, yes. Just working out, yeah, because ex-army, a hole and bury it. That's good for now. Indeed, indeed. What else have we got? Andrew says, absolutely. Even the papery husk of corn cobs are used as cow feed here. I do believe everything should be used. Waste not is a being less wasteful is quite important to me. Now, I say this because, as you know, I'm a big lover of growing pumpkins to eat, not growing them for carving. What anybody does with their own pumpkins is entirely up to them, but I grow them to eat. And on tomorrow's podcast, I'm actually going to be discussing. I've got one pumpkin, and I'm seeing how many meals or how many dishes I can make out of that one pumpkin. Just because I don't like waste. So David is asking us a technophobe, how do I make your name go orange if I reply to you? I think you have to put, like Digwell says, at David Williams or put an at before the name. I'm not sure because I can't always see it here. Just to try to ring. Oh, don't tell me the phone's doing this again. 6440. Hargrave just tried ringing apparently and couldn't get through. Oh, oh, that's because the phone has just died on us. It's just died. I don't know what's happened there. I hope it's not getting wet. Okay, I am going to have to, I'm sorry to say, close the phone line tonight, but you can still zap in. The link is going up in the comments if you want to zap in. You don't have to appear on screen. You can just do it through your microphone. If I recognize your name, we sometimes get spammers come through that way by hiding themselves. So if you, yeah, but yeah, if you don't want to appear on screen, just zap in and don't allow your camera. So Idaho says I start the okra seeds indoors. Yeah, I've tried that indoors, outdoors, in position, in trays. Just can't seem to get them going. I'm going to try again next year though. Cows, biggest maker of greenhouse gases. Indeed they are. Indeed they are. Although you could argue cars and fridges are just as bad. Although just cows, methane gas. We could be using that methane gas for good though. Pumpkins and for eating. Andrew Norris is agreeing with me. Excellent. Tell my wife that somebody agrees with me. She'll tell me off again. Oracle says Richard's got the numbers blocked. No, I haven't, but the phone's just gone flat. I think it might have got wet from the from Frankie here, just down here. Idaho, I had bad compost / potting soil. I thought I killed my seedlings by overwintering. Never happened in the past. Then began hearing others on YouTube mentioning seedlings drying after up potting. Yeah, bad compost. You know, that is becoming more and more of a problem I'm seeing. Now I've got to say I believe that peat should have been banned for use in compost. It's needed in the ground or in the bogs that is used from. It may be self-replicating, and you feel free to disagree with me on that, whatever you believe. But I've just seen we have got is. I'll come back to that in just a moment. Let's see. We have got somebody who has zapped in. Hello.
Hello. Yes, Hargrave Gas here.
Hello. How you doing?
Yeah, very well, very well, very well. Yeah, so my horror story is just a bit um, long-winded to type out. So this year, yeah, I'm still sort of getting back into gardening, and one of the things I was really keen to grow were some melons. So I had a couple of melon plants, and one was a bit sort of weak and feeble, and the other one was my pride and joy. It was an absolutely lovely plant. It had a couple of melons on it. It was growing these outdoors, and we were going away on holiday for 2 weeks. So I thought, what on earth do I do? You know, my plants are going to die. Drought, we know what it was like. So anyway, so what I did was I set up a sort of drip watering system. So I thought it'd be brilliant. Okay, no, I mean, for most things, it was really good. Now, clearly, my melon got extra special attention. So most things were in pots, in containers, and then they were in those sort of grow bag trays. So, you know, like an inch of water, if that, at the bottom, and the drippers going into the pots, all that sort of thing. Absolutely perfect. But because I was so worried about this melon, I decided it needed more water than a grow bag tray. So I put it into a sort of plastic half barrel pot. You know, the ones that you get from Wilco, and they're quite
Mhm.
deep. And I
Yeah.
hadn't drilled any holes in it, so I thought this is perfect. Perfect tray. It'll be able to take a bit more water. Melons love water. Jobs are good and all that sort of thing, right? So anyway, tested it all
Yeah.
before I went. All looked good. Then we go off for 2 weeks holiday. The last thing I did before I went, again, because I cared so much about this melon plant, is I put an extra dripper into the melon, okay, just to make sure it got enough water. Anyway, we go away, lovely holiday. We come back, looking around the garden. Things amazingly have survived. Anyway, I go round to my melon, and
Yeah.
you can sort of guess. So basically, what had happened was this half
Yeah.
barrel had just completely filled up with water. And it must have done that really, really quickly. And the pot that it was growing in, it was a relatively big pot, but the pot was only level with the top of the half barrel. So basically, it had had 2 weeks underwater, and
Oh.
it just drowned. You know, the roots had been completely starved of any oxygen whatsoever, and my pride and joy, my melon plant, died. Very sad. So that's my horror story. I thought I'd share it.
Oh.
I've always wanted to join in this way, so I've managed to do it as well, even if it is a bit of a weird horror story. So, and my other melon has produced a melon which I'm about to harvest as well. The weak and feeble plant that survived. So yeah,
Oh,
I
but
suppose not too bad a story, but as I say, yeah. So be careful. Too much love killed my melon plant.
yeah. It's funny enough you mentioned that. I've got a blueberry plant out there which is in a metal tray or a metal like a farmer's drinking trough. So galvanized tray. And it's been in there for a few years and I've watered it during the summer. But as you know, this summer was incredibly dry. For some reason, since the rain over the last few weeks, it's now like a pond because it just got so
Oh
full of
no.
water, like your
Yeah.
melon, which there's no holes in it. And I've never put holes in it. It's never needed it in the past. It's been there for about 5 years. But after this dry summer, I'm absolutely amazed it got full up that much with
Yeah.
water.
Yeah. So
So
yeah.
it goes to
So
show,
yeah, yeah. So thanks for letting me join. As I say, I've always wanted to join in, and you know, a lesson to everyone: too much love can kill your plants.
yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for zapping in. Exactly what we need this
Pleasure.
to do.
Wonderful. See you soon. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers, bye, bye. There we go. That was Hargrave Gas. We can put a face to the name, and as well as an interesting story, doesn't it? Too much love and overwatering, very, very common, especially with seedlings. Many of us do overwater. Where was I? Where was I? So Jim M says, "Evening, Richard. Good evening to you. Not sure if I'd read that one. Where was I saying? Was it this one? I think I read that one. Yeah, I'm sure I did now. Nicholas says, I just tried and went to voicemail. Yeah, I think the battery or something just died on it. Um, might be steam from this. I don't know. We're going to try a different phone. Well, he's actually in a different phone. We're going to try different sets. What's it called? Different. Oh, my mind's just gone blank. Bear with me. Bear with me. Different SIM card. Different SIM card. That's the word I was looking at. Instead of banning peat in compost, they should have started years ago with creating a reduced peat compost. I do agree with you there, actually. Yeah, I do agree with you. Reducing the peat first of all and getting it all worked out, getting the kinks worked out, and then see what happens. And then reduce it further and further. Yeah, no, I don't think that was a bad thing. Exactly what ENFU said in their response to the bans. Yep, I agree. Should have been done to that. Rebecca says with Hargrave Gas, you killed it with kindness. There, yeah. Yes, killed it with kindness. It happens though, doesn't it? Struggling to comment on YouTube. Love your hoodie, Richard. Just bought one to wear over my jumpers at the plot in winter. And man, I thought I saw something flash up. So that'll be in the post to you pretty soon. Although there are postal strikes going on this week, I believe. So it may be a bit slow, but that'll be ordered. Will go through tonight. So sad. Sorry about your melons. Everybody loves melons. I shall not start everyone off again. Yes, we're going to do a melon competition and see who has the best melons next year. We've got to work the details out on that. Yeah. Stuart says, we may have to go to snail mail if your phone has died. Well, I'm not sure what's going on with the phone. I tested it during the week. I'll take it in. It's a new phone, so I think it is the SIM card that is playing around. But luckily, we still have the ability to zap in if anybody wants to do that. Now, at this point, Jim M says, I've got an allotment horror story, Richard. How does zapping work? So if you click on the link that I've just put in the comments, it will take you to a page and it will access your microphone and your camera. Just press the options and go through that. If you don't want to appear on screen, I normally don't like doing this, but because the phone's gone down, I would allow it. But if you don't actually want to appear on screen, then you can just do vocals as well. When we've done it in the past, we've had trolls, so I try and not do that. But yeah, it's pretty easy to do. As Hargrave Gas, I'm sure will now say how easy it is. Right. What I wanted to quickly do while we wait is have a look at some of the photos that have came in. We've had some absolutely lovely photo. Now, Tara contacted me a couple of weeks ago. Hopefully you can see this. It's a bit small to see these pictures, I'm afraid. But a lovely collection of chilies on her bench. And this is the estate that she works in and looks after. Absolutely beautiful place. I'm hoping to pop up there at some point and have a look. Absolutely stunning estate that she looks after, the vegetable patch. Absolutely amazing. I was blown away with it. And these are her pumpkins. Lovely collection of pumpkins going on there as well. Anne in Montreal, who is joined us tonight as well. This is her with her rhubarb. She's also got these lovely looking carrots that she's harvested. Absolutely stunning and look tasty, don't they? You cannot beat the flavour of fresh carrots. We've also got, I think this is a courgette growing on the vine from her place in Montreal. Absolutely beautiful. And then we've got a load of potatoes here as well, looking stunning. Kate has been working on her allotment and she found this courgette that she didn't see. We'll come back to the photos again in just a moment because we've got somebody waiting in the screen. This is Jim. Hello.
Hello, Richard. You all right?
Oh, hang on. You're very quiet. You're very, very quiet.
Okay. Can you hear me at all?
Just, but very, very faintly.
Oh, crikey. Okay. You want me to carry on or?
Let me see. I'm on 100%. Let me see if I try. I don't know if anybody else can hear you, would be my worry.
Let me
Let's
just
see.
switch off my wireless speaker. I don't know if that's possibly.
No, sorry. I couldn't hear you. Okay, no worries. I'll come back. We'll carry on. Oh. Oh, Digwell can hear you apparently.
Okay.
Oh, that's better. That's got it.
Okay. That was my wireless speaker. I just switched it off. I don't know why that would have affected anything, but it obviously did.
Ah, right. Well, I couldn't hear you or very, very faintly. So
Okay,
yeah,
all
it's
good.
obviously going through that.
All right. I've got a allotment horror story for you.
Go for it.
My current allotment, which I've had now for 7 or 8 years, when I first turned up there, it was terrible. It hadn't been used for about 4 years, and it was just 8 feet high with 8 feet high with what's that horrible one? Anyway, weeds everywhere. It was a terrible state, and it took so much work to get it usable. But there was this one little bit which actually looked quite clear. The soil didn't look like clay; it looked decent quality soil. And on that first year, basically all I did was chop everything down, cover it all over, and there were just 1 or 2 patches here and there just to get things started where I grew a few things. Now, I decided I was going to put in some sunflowers for my nephews and nieces. There's 4 nephews and nieces, so this little clear area that I found where the soil looked quite good, I thought, right, we'll stick 4 sunflowers in there, just as a year 1 thing. We'll see what happens, and the kids can have 1 each. So as I was digging the holes out to plant these sunflowers, I was coming across some quite largish bones, quite a few largish bones, and they were ribs. I was pulling these ribs out. They were, I don't know, 10 inches maybe, these ribs, and it was all a bit kind of, what's going on here? So rather than dig any further, I started to dig along to see, trying to find a skull and see what I was dealing with. And I pulled out this skull, and it had carnivore teeth. I thought, okay, what's going on here? It turns out that the previous owner of the allotment, who'd abandoned it, as I said, 4 or 5 years ago, that's where he buried his red setter.
Oh. Oh.
So I turned up at this horrible mess of an allotment. There was this one nice, reasonably clear little patch where I decided to grow some sunflowers on year 1. And the only reason it was clear is because it had a dead dog in it, a very large dead dog.
Wow.
But the sunflowers did really well.
That's good. They're glad that the sunflowers done well, but
they were all good 9-footers,
I've heard of sheep being found, or sheep carcasses being found on the allotment, because it's an old story that people would bury sheep to make certain things grow better.
Yeah, right.
But a dog.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, this was basically just his pet had died. I don't know if he didn't have a very big garden, or I don't know, but for some reason he buried it on the allotment.
wow.
Most of it is still there to this day. It's got me asparagus on it now.
Well, I guess it's not doing any harm underground. It's something to add a bit of fertilizer, a bit of bone meal to the ground, I guess.
That's it. Yeah. It did me well for those sunflowers on year 1 when I didn't really have anywhere to grow anything else. It was all just docks.
Yeah. Have you? I don't know if you've seen that meme going around of people putting like Halloween skeletons underneath their decking, so that when somebody takes down the decking in the future, they get a scare. That's something I want to do. That's something I want to do, is set scares up like that, which probably sounds like this bloke was doing as well.
He might well have been, actually. Maybe he knew he was going to give up the allotment soon, and just thought he'd, mess with me a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
But I mean, it's interesting actually. I've been thinking about this quite a bit. What do you do if you do discover bones on an allotment or in the garden, or even on the beach, and you don't know what they're from? How would you go about that, recognizing what it was?
Well, initially, I was slightly concerned because they were quite big rib bones. I mean,
Yeah,
I've buried a pet rabbit on the allotment under a plum tree, two pet rabbits under a plum tree. This dog is a red setter, apparently, according to my neighbours. Quite a large dog. So I found these ribs, and they were large enough to make me think, well, what is this exactly?
yeah,
So you say, what would you do? Well, in my case, I was curious, and I just dug along until I found the skull. But yeah,
yeah, yeah. Because I know last year we were walking the dog down on the beach, and she started picking something up in her mouth, and it was a jawbone of something. It still
right.
had the teeth in, and we don't know what it was. But again, that was one of those things. What do we do here?
Yeah. Did it look vaguely human or
I could tell it wasn't human. It was too
right?
long to be
Right.
human.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 But Digwell's came up with a bit of a joke, actually. Really surprised. Are you super sure it wasn't a collie? Oh, dear.
No, it definitely wasn't a collie. No.
Definitely wasn't a collie. Fantastic, fantastic. That's definitely a horror story in itself there. So thank you so much for sharing
Yeah.
that with us.
Yeah. Okay. Nice one. Cheers. Thanks, Richard.
Right. Lovely. Cheers, Jim.
I'll catch you later.
Have a good one. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks.
There we go. That was a horror story in itself. Oh, sorry, pushing too many buttons here. That was a horror story in itself. I think. What would you do if you come across that on your allotment? How would you? Yeah, that's really got me. That's another one that's got me quite flustered on what I would do. Back to the photo. So yeah, Kate had clearing out her allotment and she discovered this courgette that she didn't know she had. So of course that got put to good use. But also her skeleton is saying hello as well. This lovely little ornament. Talking of finding things on the allotment, this certainly summarizes it up as well. Now, Kate, this is a bit of a horror story she sent me as well. There she was working on the allotment. This is Chilly Kate and Chilly Phil. And she felt something climbing up her leg. And that's where she discovered this little creature. Snails can be friends or foes depending on what you are looking for, but climbing up your leg, you never know what it is. She's also harvested this lot of squashes. Good lot there, I've got to say. Looks absolutely delicious and fantastic. Those butternut squashes are particularly looking really good. Now, Stuart Reynolds has shared this picture of his pumpkins that he's carved to say "slow down" on the road traffic. So great idea, actually. If only they were made we use the pumpkins like this one here, the plastic ones, because I don't like to waste food. Now, Digwell shared this photo actually, poinsettia, and it's a bit of a comment, a bit of a news article actually. Poinsettia growing here in the UK the nursery is becoming a little bit difficult to run and may actually fold, which is very sad to hear, but seems to be the way things are going. And it seems a shame. I mean, poinsettia growers are pretty hard work. They are Jamaica. A plant comes from Jamaica, so to get them to flower at Christmas here in this country is pretty tough. So yeah, please do keep sharing your photos. They can go in on our Facebook group. You can send them to me easily or via direct message on social media, or email me, richard@thevegroweruppodcast.co.uk. Everyone else could hear, but I couldn't, so it may have been me. Admittedly, these speakers aren't the best here. But I did say that much better. David Williams just signed up. Rich, could you let me know if it's gone through? Cheers. I will have a look in a minute. I'm sure it has gone through, but you'll get a podcast tonight anyway. So leave that with me. Idaho said, "Thank goodness that was only a dog." Yeah, only a dog. I mean, 10-inch, 10-inch ribs. You start to get a little bit worried, don't you? A greyhound cabbage. Indeed, indeed. Brian's Garden Polytunnel. My daughter has Halloween bones in my planters outside my bungalow. I live opposite a school. Last week, a parent stopped to admire the decorations. I told her that's where I bury the kids when I catch them smoking. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Definitely something to scare the kids with, isn't it? And the kids just laughed at me. Absolutely. I would too. I would too. Don't blame them. But hey, if it stops them from smoking, that can only be a good thing. I remember when I was a kid, the things we used to get up to, wouldn't like to do it. By the way, I haven't asked you this yet. This show has been flying on, but if you would be so kind to give this video a thumbs up, a like. If you haven't subscribed or followed, then please do that. And don't forget to click the notifications so that you know when we go live. We go live at the same time every Sunday, 6 p.m. GMT. Obviously, we're an hour later for many people in the other parts of the world this week because our clocks went back last night. We had an extra hour in bed, supposedly. I was still up at the same time and down on the allotment. Now, did I mention, talking of the allotment, I was down there earlier today. I think I did mention the garlic. I planted out last week, the garlic, and it was the early purple white garlic has gone in, and already, well, actually I planted all my garlic last week, but the early purple white is pretty tall already. I'm amazed just how quickly that one has grown. I'm not complaining at all because it's going to get it in and off to an early start. Hopefully the rest of the garlic is going to follow. My onions have started to grow as well, and they've only been growing for a couple of weeks too. Field beans are looking massive and doing well. The broad beans aren't showing any signs of life. Peas are growing well. We've got so many things going on down on the allotment at the moment that it certainly feels like it feels like it's the beginning of the season. I always say that I feel September is the beginning of the season because there's so much that we can do and grow over winter, and this has proven it to me. At home, we've harvested and cleared out the courgettes and the tomatoes just to empty that bed. I can't remember what that bed's going to be used for next year. But we had a good session at our home plot yesterday. One thing that my wife was doing was out the front of our house on our driveway. And she was clearing away, hacking away a lot of our trees and our bushes that we have out the front. Now, I tried to remove a lot of these bushes earlier this year because we started growing more vegetables and more food out the front of our house. But we kind of rushed into that, if I'm honest. So what we decided to do, some of these privet bushes, I couldn't dig them out because the ground is so hard, compacted down. I dug a couple out yesterday, but it's going to be quite a bit of work to dig them out. But what we've said is what we're going to do, we've removed all our plants from out the front, apart from these ones. We're going to plan it properly. This is something I want to talk about next week. I want to get you guys to try and help me plan what we can do with edible gardening in our front garden. I don't know if you grow fruit in your front garden. I know some of you do, but I'd love to see some ideas on what you do with that. So yeah, I'll mention the place out. We'll get a design up. I want to see what plans we can do with our front garden. Bearing in mind, it's a driveway and we've got to use cars on it at the same time. But yeah, that's the plan for next week. Idaho is there when the comment comes up. Yes, I was ready an hour earlier. I couldn't imagine what has happened, but Googled what time is it in England and found out you guys had already set the clocks back. We do it on November the 5th, 6th. Ours is always the last weekend of October and the last week, and we put it forward the last weekend in March, I think. somebody will correct me. It's always 6 p.m. GMT. That's when we go live. I got confused last week trying to work it out. But 6 p.m. GMT is the time that I always go live on a Sunday. I was talking to somebody earlier this week, and actually we realized I've never missed a single Sunday in 2 years of doing this. So you can know pretty much guarantee we go live at the same time every week. Stuart Jackson says, today we took your advice. I put our mower over our oak leaves to chop them up before they went into the compost bin. It worked really well. Yeah, I always recommend that. I do the same with all our right. Am I back? Am I back? Sorry about that. Sorry, everyone. Don't know what happened there. I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. Oh, sorry. I hate it when that happens. But I'm here. I'm here. Alice says Richard froze. The screen froze. Oops. Robert says buffering. Jenny says spooky goings on. Adrian says bye, Richard and all. Sorry, I am here. Turbo Stream says he's gone off. I'm here. Brian says Richard paid his bill for internet services. I'm back. Something's gone wrong. That's better. Bill paid. Phew, he's back. Welcome back. I nearly had an early bath. Well, apologies. Don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I just suddenly I saw it disappear off screen and then something happened. But he's I think I told you all the leaves in work get dumped in a roll along skip. I get right. Yeah. I thought it was an April Fool's joke come early, LOL. No, I don't generally do April Fools on something like that, but because viewing figures, got to think about the viewing figures. I don't know why I'm still wearing these, actually. I was trying to put them back in, but I only really need that for the phone, which isn't, as we know, it isn't on. We're back. Yes, so what was I saying? Next week, help me design this front garden. And what was I saying before that? Chopping up we all our weeds, all our prunings and everything we chop up, goes in the compost bin. It gets really hot in the compost bin because of that. It does make a mess of our lawn, to be honest, but over the winter when the grass really does grow long, it soon disappears. And Ballycillian, in reference to that, says, I think I told you when all the leaves in work get dumped into a roll along skip, I get into a skip with a strimmer, then bag up the chopped leaves. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of using leaves as much as possible. I'm filling up, making leaf molds, using them as a mulch, using them as a blanket almost to protect some plants. Oh, my nose is blocked up. Coming to that time of year when they are all available. I go down to our local park now and collect as many leaves as I possibly can. Got permission from the council to do this. Had to make sure we could. I try not to get them from woodlands just because I don't want to damage any of the wildlife in there. So the park, the recreation field, works out great for us to do that with. So yeah, leaves. I'm a big fan of collecting leaves, and if you chop them up nice and small, run over with a lawnmower, they rot down even quicker. You don't have to do that. I tend to just throw them into a big leaf mold bin and let them rot down there. But if you do want it to be quicker by chopping them up, it does help. So like I said, next week we're going to be getting you guys to help me design my front garden. We're going to be sowing peas as well. I will hopefully have some hopefully the what do you call them, the aubergines that we sowed last week will start showing some signs of life, and I'll try and show you the spinach as well if I remember. Turbo Stream says, I made full use of the leaves that get delivered to our plots last year. Yes, you did. And I think your allotment looked all the better for it. You used them as mulch, you covered them over all your beds, and it worked. It worked really well. So, yeah. Oh, we're back. It's starting to play around. I'm just hearing all the weather has got worse, and a lot of rain seems to be coming through. So, we're hopefully that's all it is that's causing the issues. I'll keep a close eye on everything. So, yeah, I'm lucky. The wind blows all the leaves outside my perimeter wall on our avenue. Happy days. Yeah. Yeah. So you go and collect them nice and easy. We've been doing a similar sort of thing. It's starting to play around slightly, isn't it? That's the signal. Hopefully it's just a one-off. It's phone problems tonight, isn't it? If it's not our phone line breaking and not letting people call in, and then going flat, it's our network phone not clinging on. Turbo Stream, oh, he's gone again. Oh, hang on. I'm going and coming. We've got about 5 minutes to go anyway before the end of this show. So not too mad. If you haven't already, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to follow, don't forget to get notified when we go live. Stuart Jackson says, when using leaves as a mulch, do you need to crop them up or just lay them on the garden? I just lay them on the garden. Just lay them down, just like you would find in if you go into a woodland or somewhere like that. Just lay them down and let it do the work. Nothing difficult about it. Try and keep it nice and easy is what I say. Jim M says, my work phone has been a nightmare this week. Yeah, our work phone's always a nightmare. Brian says, have we had any solar storms? They will affect the internet. I'm actually using my phone internet because it's faster than my home internet, believe it or not. Don't know about solar storms. It's Halloween, Richard. Spooky going on. That reminded me. Do you remember in one of our past live streams when I was chatting away and one of these just, see if I can do it. Mind out, Mr. Spider, just dropped like that on its own. And I was nowhere near it at the time. I just heard it and wondered what the hell it was. I was trying to find which one that was because I was going to clip that for advertising this show. Turbo Stream says, call in the Ghostbusters. Yeah, call in the Ghostbusters. Digwell says there's been loads of rainstorms and too many indeed. Yeah, there has been a lot of rain lately. After such a dry summer, I thought we would be grateful for a bit of rain, but I feel we're going to have problems with flooding in places with so much rain that we've had this year. My allotment is already starting to become difficult, a bit too muddy to drive around, so we're going to have to stop using the van or our vehicles to go right down to the allotment and park nearer the entrance, just in case we get stuck in the mud, which we don't want. It's not too much of a problem. It's only when you're carrying heavy items that it becomes a bit of a problem. So, yeah, we are certainly looking at that and thinking about that. Right, as I said, on the podcast this week, we are, what are we talking about? Well, yeah, how many things can I do with one pumpkin? How many dishes can I make with one pumpkin? And I've got, hopefully, 2 videos I've shot this weekend coming out for you on the Veg Grower podcast. First one at home and the second one down on the allotment. Just got into making videos again at the moment, so I'm having a bit of fun with that. Digwell says the soil is still very dry, 6 inches down. Yes, actually, it's true. I was digging out my potatoes and it was surprising how dry it was today, which is not a good thing. We also went for a walk around a town earlier today that has like a sewer system making a river through it, and that was dry. There was not any water in it at all, which is unusual. Alison O'Brien, been raining a lot here, but there is still a hosepipe ban. You would have thought by now they would start getting rid of hosepipe bans, but it takes a long time for those reservoirs to fill up, I guess. So, yeah. Who knows? I mean, it's always a joke, isn't it? That after the summer we have, or after a really, really wet winter, we're going to get hosepipe bans. But hey, this is why I'm a big fan of having as many water butts as possible in order to make sure that a hosepipe ban doesn't affect us. As I said, I've got 16 here at home that are pretty much all full of water now, and that lasts us all year round. We never have to use any of our tap water to do it. Right, it's 7:30, so it's time to go. And as Rebecca says, thank you for tonight. I'll see you all next week. Yeah, we're going to start wrapping this up just quickly. Brian says the trouble with dry soil too near the surface means flooding if we get heavy rains. Indeed, and it's definitely a good chance of that. So yeah, we'll be back again 6 p.m. GMT, as I'm describing it now is the correct way to do it. Here from the Podding Shed. Next week we are discussing, or I'm going to get you guys to help me plan my front garden and work out what we can do. I didn't get a get to know you videos, so I haven't played any of those, but I could do some of those for next week as well, and the weeks after, if anybody is good enough to send them. Thank you so much to Hargrave Gas and Jim M for zapping in. Thank you to everyone for sending in your photos and for contributing. Stuart Jackson says my internet has got better, so I'll send you an email about coming on the show, maybe in the new year. Thanks again for the great live. Yep, great stuff. Great stuff. If your internet is fast enough, that would be great. Right, Turbo Stream says see you all next week. Hargrave Gas, thanks for another great week. Brian's Garden Allotment, see you next week. Take care, everyone. Have a great week from Jenny and Idaho. Great program. See you next week. And Adrian says bye all. Indeed, it has been a lot of fun, just as I hoped it would be. Your gardening horror stories, I think for me, the one that really stuck out was Jim M's discovering the dead dog in his allotment, the bones. So that for me has probably been one of the worst stories, or the most horrific story anyway, closely followed by the nail through the foot. Anyway, I love and leave you. You take care, guys, and I will speak to you again next time.